Now, we did not, last Thursday, did we talk about the registration stuff for this coming semester? Did I spend any time talking about that, or is that from a different class?
That was from a different class. I did see that you put out a video about it on your YouTube channel, though.
Okay, let me spend a couple minutes talking about that specifically for this audience, because this audience, I think, will benefit from this, just to put you on track. Some of you haven't taken some of the classes, so you might be interested in this. All right, so so officially our new CS major starts in the fall, but anybody can opt into this, the new catalog. So basically, when you go to graduate, you graduate based on the catalog that you're officially under. So you all are currently under catalog, fall of 2018? Yeah, something like that. 2019. Fall of 2019. Yeah. So that's the classes. No, your fall of, this is your third semester, right? Whatever it is. So you're in the older CS major. The new CS major, I think you've seen this before, so I'll just briefly skim through this. It has a technology core. These are classes that everybody has to take. And most of these are classes that were already in your major now anyways. Just a couple of them have been swapped out, but these are classes that you would just start to be taking now. So you really haven't hurt yourself is my punchline. And then you pick at least one concentration, but you can have up to, I think we've discovered that if you pick the right concentrations, you can actually fit 3 concentrations in, but you're only required to do one. So you pick one of the 5 concentrations. So either software engineering, which this is traditional computer science. So this is basically the major that you're currently in. So whether 450 and 470 were officially required for you or not, they were going to be classes you were going to have to take anyways because we were starving you out of other electives. So they were required, let's say. But so if you're currently traditional computer science, you're effectively a software engineering concentration person. Then we have AI and robotics. Notice there's some overlap with that and software engineering. They both require 300, which everybody's in right now. So you're already down that rabbit hole. It requires 415, which was already required for you. And then we have these 2 new classes, kind of an AI 2, which is 417, and then machine learning and robotics, which is 419. Then we have kind of a hybrid concentration. This lives somewhere between traditional computer science and information technology in your catalog. So this guy requires 426, a networking course called 440, and then a new course called 428 penetration testing, which is offered for the first time in the fall. And I'll talk about that here in a few minutes. And then there's other class called systems integration, which is kind of a hardware, making computing systems talk to each other, that kind of thing. Next one, computer animation. This is obviously the most different of all of them, since if you are interested in 3D modeling and that kind of stuff, Dr. Wall is an expert in this. So we have an animation concentration. You take these 4 classes. Notice there's a little overlap with cybersecurity. So these are pretty compatible with each other just because of the 180 class. Same is true for information systems. All 3 of those concentrations share that 180 class. And notice actually cybersecurity shares 180 and 426 with information systems, and 440 actually. So the only difference between information systems and cybersecurity is instead of penetration testing, you take 450, which is actually from software engineering. So you can kind of paint as you go, but if you were strategic, you can actually fit up to 3 concentrations in here. And where concentration benefits you is it'll show up on your transcript. So when you go to apply for jobs, it'll show bachelors of science in computer science with concentrations in software engineering, AI and robotics, and cybersecurity, something like that. and that could be pretty valuable for getting yourself bubbled up to the top of a list, which is why I'm talking to this audience here, because this might be you guys are most likely right on that edge of maybe it makes sense for you to switch to the new catalog. A couple of things that might be of interest is that we have lowered the math requirement. That's more about who the audience is and less about appropriateness. So we no longer require calculus as the class you have to take to meet the core math requirement. We also no longer require discrete math. The only class we require is you take statistics 1. Now, rationale behind that, because as I've mentioned this to some people are like, well, I thought we needed more math. And so I'll operate from this perspective. Computer programming and mathematics are very related. Both of them are problem solving, both of them are kind of solving puzzles, things like that. So any math class would complement the computer programming skill set very well. Having said that, I have to look at it from the perspective of when you get out into industry, what skills do you need to be successful in your job versus what skills might be nice to have or have improved your problem solving skills, but aren't necessarily things that you're going to pull from. So for instance, if I put myself in the shoes of a software engineer working at Acuity or Apple or Google or, pick your poison, is not having calculus going to drastically change your ability to do your job well? And the answer is no, it's not. I think statistics is pretty important. So I think having that skill set is required. That's why we kept that thing required. The other ones I think are good classes. I'd recommend that you take them as part of your electives. I'd certainly push you in that direction for meeting the math requirement in the core, but we're not requiring it in computer science. So if you're avert to math or you just want less math and take more of some other classes, the new major requires less math. We also don't require cosmogony. So in the core, we have there's a section of the core called Human Beings Being Human. And that particular section requires, was it five credit hours of credit. 2 of them are like HHP classes, like bowling and stuff like that. I can go off on that for a week. And then the other one is basically a 3 credit hour class that's from the list of classes that count under the guise of human beings being human. Computer science in your catalog required you to meet that requirement by taking Science 275, cosmogony, which is the science of creation. So again, my position on this is I would be supportive of the university as a whole requiring everybody to take cosmogony. I think it's a cool class. I think the idea of, from an apologetics perspective for certainly computer science folks, science-minded folks, to be able to defend the Christian faith and be able to, appropriately or intelligently discuss the difference between evolution and creationism, where they contradict, where they're actually compatible, things like that. And that's what that class is all about. It's actually a science class that helps you defend the Christian faith. Cool class, certainly appropriate for all Concordia students. But again, if I look at it through the lens of, is that something that computer science students need to do well in industry, given that Concordia already has you take several theology classes? Cosmogony is a little bit different. I wouldn't call it a traditional theology class because it really is approaching it from a science angle. So I'd say it's a cool class. I'd strongly recommend that you meet the core requirement by taking cosmogony, but we no longer require that be the class you take. Now you can take, I think it's any psychology class, any philosophy class, there's some law classes. You'd want to talk to like Dana about which classes count for that. So we can help you with the computer science specific requirements. She can help with what meets the core, that kind of stuff. So if you were avoiding that class, either it just wasn't of interest to you or didn't like the teacher or whatever it is. So Dr. Locklear is the teacher for the class. He's an expert in that field. He's part of the Creationist Society. So he really does know the stuff. It's a cool class, highly recommend it, but it's no longer required in computer science. So if you have an aversion to that class for whatever reason, you can get out of taking that. Having said that, even if you don't switch catalog years, I'm also allowing students, I'll have to make the exception, so I'll have to work with the registrar, but I'm allowing students to take another class to meet that core requirement. But again, I want to strongly emphasize that I'm not trying to get you to not take that class. I'm just saying it's not appropriate to require that class for computer science students specifically. So strongly encourage you to take it, but if you don't want to take it for whatever reason, doesn't fit your schedule, whatever, I'll allow you to take another class to meet the human beings being human requirement. The new major also requires an internship. I know a lot of you are already getting internships, and I'm sure that there's going to be some exceptions when we get down to your senior year and you're one semester from graduating and you either haven't found an internship or didn't have time or whatever, that will end up swapping another class in to count for the internship. Hopefully that becomes less and less of an issue in the future, but that's certainly something that we would do instead of delaying your graduation. You know, basically as a computer science major in the new thing, you take all of these classes. Notice that 150 is missing, so you do not have to take 150 anymore. Sorry, I can't take that class back from you. So because the new major comes with 21 free electives, now you technically would have 18 free electives because you burned one of them on 150. Again, nothing I can do about that now. Everybody needs 175. You should have all had it. 200, 250, you guys have all had it. 325 is a class that's not required, but I would have basically told you you had to take it and you would have fallen into it anyways. This is computer organization and architecture. Operating systems you already needed. Software engineering you already needed. 410 you already needed. 420 you already needed. 430 you already needed. 460 is kind of a database 2 class with some web development. This is a new class that we're introducing. 491 you already needed it. Internship, statistics. So all this stuff is pretty much already things you were putting into your schedule anyways. Similarly, you come down here, all of you are already going to take 300. You were already going to take 450. You're already going to take 470. You're already going to take 490. You're already a software engineering concentration. So I think there's only upside in switching the catalog year to the new catalog because it's just going to give you a sexier looking final transcript. It's going to sound cooler to employers. While not really costing you anything except the 150 class effectively at this point, since you didn't have to take it under the new guys. Now, like I said, you have 21 free electives. We don't require a minor in the new major. So if you were already trying to debate what you should pick as a minor or whatever, we no longer require that. If you've already picked a minor, you've started working towards it, those will just come off your 21 free electives. You haven't hurt yourself at all. Now, if I had my druthers, I want you to spend as many of these 21 free electives on more computer science classes. You know, do a second concentration, do a third concentration. But all of you are individuals. I want your college experience to be what you want it to be. So you can spend these free electives however you want. You only have to pick one of these concentrations, and then you can go and mess with multimedia, all sorts of different things. Psychology, if you want to do a bunch of psychology classes, whatever makes you happy. All right, so there's a lot of flexibility in the new schedule that I think only is an improvement from the current one. So I encourage all of you to closely look at this and consider moving to this new catalog that starts in the fall, because I don't think any of you are put at a disadvantage because of it, other than the 150 class being a forced free elective on you. Although actually, I keep saying that, technically, since we require stats here, you can technically meet the 150 counts for the core math requirement. So you have met the core math requirement by taking 150, so you don't have to take any other math other than stats. Technically. I don't know if I agree with 150 counting as the core math requirement, but it does. So take that for what it is. So go ahead.
So would you recommend having multiple concentrations over having a solidified minor? Or
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question about the internship credit. Can we pick what semester we apply that to?
Yeah. So for many of you, you'll end up doing internships over the summer, for example. Now, you got two options, right? You can say, well, I want to pay for extra credits over the summer, or if you have room in your schedule, you can say, I'm going to take internship in the fall, but you've done your internship the previous summer and you'll just get credit for it in the fall since it's already under your tuition. Again, so let me answer those two questions. I want to follow up a little bit on Clancy's question. So for the internship deal, I know I'm going out of order, but I'll come back because I want to finish answering your question, Clancy. The internship class is only a 1 credit class, so you actually will take it up to 3 times for your different internships. If you have a particularly heavy internship where you're working full-time in the summer or something like that, we can figure out a way to count that for more than 1 credit hour. So we have a lot of flexibility in there is the punchline, but the official university party line is probably something along the lines of, if you're doing your internship in the summer, you should enroll in internship in the summer and do your internship and get credit for it in the summer, but you're paying tuition, you get 18 credit hours with it. Many of you don't take 18 credit hours, so fitting an extra 1 credit hour class in there isn't really a big deal. So if I were you, I would take the 400 in the fall and just get credit for the work you did the previous summer and save a couple of bucks. So now that's one way to play it. The concentrated way to play this, and this starts getting more related to what Clancy was asking, is a lot of you know I was born Jewish, so we always want a good deal. The stereotype is it's true in a lot of ways actually, but in any case, hey, you're paying a bunch of money for college. It comes with 18 credit hours. Take 18 credit hours. Otherwise, you're devaluing your the deal. Now, I realize there's some sanity issues that go into that and things like that. But so with that in mind, that's where I start pushing on this whole idea of doing multiple concentrations. Clancy asked, should I do a second concentration instead of a minor? 100% for 99% of you, let's say. Some of you are trying to create this like weird hodgepodgey college experience thing, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. There's certainly value in being a computer science major with a whole bunch of biology classes, let's say, because biomedical stuff is mixing with computer science all over the place. So, I mean, a lot of those things make sense, even though it might not be compatible with a specific minor. It allows you to dabble in a lot of different things and have a kind of a hybrid knowledge base. So the new program gives you that flexibility to do that. But most of you are going to go out and be traditional computer science technology workers, more than likely either being software engineers, working in artificial intelligence moving forward, because that's going to be a bigger and bigger thing, right? Or working in cybersecurity. These three are the big three here, right? If it were up to me, I wouldn't even have information systems. It's not that is a wasted major, and I don't want you just to focus on dollars, because there's more to life than money. But if you're looking at salary this is effectively the new name for IT. Marketing said it's the better name for IT. If you look at salary for an IT person versus salary for a software engineer, they're not even close. You're not talking about the same world. And that goes back to right from 200, where we talk about computer programming being a superpower. What you guys are doing here in this, in 200, 250, 300, and hopefully in all your other classes, doing a lot of programming. I know it takes a lot of time. I know sometimes you hate me because of the amount of time you're spending, disproportionate amount of time you're spending on computer science homework. But the reality is that this is a superpower that is going to make you rich. Again, money's not the most important thing, but computer programming is something that a lot of people just don't have the capacity to do. Other people have. I could never be a ballerina. I could never be an opera singer or something like that. So there's plenty of talents that are very, very, very powerful that I would never be able to do. But the point is that if you do have a knack for computer programming, getting very good at that skill is a well-paid industry. And I think right now with this whole COVID thing, it's even more appropriate because we happen to be in an industry that is very, very, very compatible with working from home. My wife's been a programmer at home for 15 years, way before it was cool to be a programmer for home. And she's even a COBOL programmer from home. So she works on old school type stuff. So you're in an industry that is very compatible with, let's call it, this new way of life. We all hope that this isn't the permanent way of life, but at the very least, I think this is going to become more and more common now. Even if we go back to, quote, normal, having online type jobs is going to be a bigger and bigger thing. And I think I've maybe mentioned it in here before. We have a former student, good buddy of mine, Tim Huseman, came out of our program, was working in downtown Milwaukee right out of school. I would call him a average minus programmer when he came out of school. Wasn't the strongest, but it was okay. So started making a little bit less than what some other people are making right out of school. I think he was making $55,000 or something like that. And he did software development in basically Java, writing stuff for a customer relation management software called Salesforce. Super famous software. If you haven't heard of it, just do a Google search real quick and you'll see it all over the place. They're like they're the Google of customers, Google of CRMs. And so he got a skill set in working with that. Well, now he lives in Milwaukee, works for a company in New York City making six figures. He's only been out of school 3 years. So he's been working for a company in New York City making six figures. And mind you, this isn't one of our strongest. He's good, but he's not one of our strongest. But he's making six figures for a company in New York City, working at home in Milwaukee. And everybody wins. He's making more money than he would make in the Milwaukee area. And New York City company is paying him less than they'd have to pay somebody who lives in New York City because of the cost of living there. So this is going to become more and more prevalent in our world, especially in this group's world because of the industry we're in. So, if I'm if I was doing our new program, I would do software engineering, AI, and robotics and figure out how to squeeze cybersecurity in. This gives you a resume that's going to allow you to go to all sorts of different places. I'm not interested at all in computer animation, but plenty of people are. So take my advice with a grain of salt there, because I'm pointing you into very computer sciencey traditional stuff, as opposed to artsy stuff where that's not my interest area. So it's easy for me to poo-poo it when there's nothing wrong with it, and lots of people make very good money and have very successful careers doing that kind of stuff. So all of us have God-given gifts. Follow those gifts wherever they take you. But if I'm speaking specifically to the CS traditional folks, if you were in the old CS traditional program, your go-to move is probably, if you're just going to do two, software engineering and AI and robotics. Those two are very compatible. Get two concentrations out of it. I'll tell you what, if you can squeeze in cybersecurity, you have a resume that's going to be able to get you jobs. But that's going to be true with the AI and robotics as well. So to your point, Clancy, is more than one concentration more powerful than having a minor? Absolutely. Truly in industry, they don't care about your minor. I would say the answer to that question would be the same even if I didn't have these concentrations. I would say minors are largely a waste of time. That's why we don't even have a requirement for a minor now. A lot of programs are moving in that direction. Those other classes are not wastes of time. But if you have a computer science major with a bunch of biology classes, that's every bit as good as having a biology minor. Is my punchline to a potential employer. So now you have the flexibility, kind of build your own hybrid minor. In fact, we had a thing before called a individualized minor, where you can invent a minor that maybe was a hodgepodge between chemistry and psychology or something like that. So, but generally, employers care about your major. They don't care about your minor. Frankly, they probably don't care about double majors either. I think too many people waste time with a second major when they could either build a stronger background, or, the segue here is this doesn't really benefit you unless it's just very compatible and you've already been taking like 18 credits. But we have a new scholars program where you can finish the master's and the bachelor's in 4 years with just paying your bachelor's tuition. But we also have an early start master's where any of you can, in your senior year, if you kind of plan for it, can get 2 classes. Well, actually, you would get 4 classes out of the way. So 12 credits of the 30 credit master's program under your belt. So you can actually finish the master's in possibly 1 semester, but most 2 semesters following your bachelor's degree, and get the master's more quickly, which then also bumps your earning potential. And our master's, starting in the fall, is going all online. We do have face-to-face master's classes that are targeted towards the international students who need to have a face-to-face requirement for 9 credit hours. So every semester we will have 9 credits of face-to-face graduate classes, but otherwise the graduate classes are all 8-week online courses, self-paced, so you don't have to worry about scheduling conflicts or anything like that. So I'd recommend that for every one of you. To get a jump start, use some of your undergrad credits to get a jump start on the master's program. With then you're going to finish the program afterwards, because those master's classes will not count towards any undergraduate requirements. So you want to use those as extra classes. So my feeling would be, don't do a second major. For any of you who have a second major, start a master's. A major plus a master's is always better than 2 majors.
I have a question about our master's program.
Sure.
Do we have any concentrations for that right now?
Yeah, so I bring it up here. Much more boring, because it's a more focused program. It starts moving more towards, I guess, management. Not business management, but, typically the folks that are going to be managers in the technology industry are probably people with master's degrees or with lots of years of experience. The general conversion I've heard of is computer scientist with a master's is roughly equivalent to a bachelor's with 3 years of experience. I'm not sure that, this is kind of like a dog years conversion type thing, but roughly that. So our 2 concentrations in there are software engineering and information systems. So the equivalent of this guy and this guy. So I would expect almost everybody coming out of our program to look at the software engineering emphasis in that. Again, not that information systems is bad. If you're interested in more of hardware, server maintenance, printer, like working for IT for the university, it's an incredibly important job, but it's almost like the grunt worker of the technology industry. And I don't want to say that in a demeaning way, because it's super important, and more so now than ever, really. So you're seeing, the people that are keeping Zoom and stuff going are some of the most important people in the world right now. But these folks are probably underappreciated, underpaid, is the reality. But you're basically working with physical things most of the time. Whereas in traditional computer science, you're working with bits and bytes and software, and everything is virtual things. So, whichever of those 2 interest you, we have those 2 different tracks in the master's program, but just like the undergrad, there's a technology core. So you'll take, an basic and ethics class, you'll take an AI class, cybersecurity, a user experience class, computer networking, mobile computer architecture. So we talk about the actual, this is like the big brother of 325. So 325 talks about computer architecture in general. This guy talks about specifically mobile computer architecture, applied RESTful APIs and integrations. So this is going to be a, kind of a advanced programming class using a lot of third-party stuff. So this might be kind of the big brother of 300, where we start bringing in other tools to make our programs cooler, to whatever. We also have an internship, but this is not required as part of it, but the course exists because I would say specifically for the international students, because they have something called CPT, which allows them to work in industry. Otherwise, they're only allowed to work as like a student worker on campus making no money. Two concentrations are software engineering and information systems. So for software engineering, we have an advanced algorithms class, so call this 300 version 2. So we look at more crazy algorithms. We also have a compilers class, so like how to build the C++ compiler. And then we look at a language theory class. This is the big brother of 470. So several of you are going to be taking 470 here in the fall. We'll talk about that in a minute. I know we're burning a lot of class time here, but I want to make sure everybody gets into the right classes, and it is what it is. We've had so many questions. I should have done this a couple weeks ago, but whatever. So that's the, so 3 classes makes the difference. If you go on the information system side, you'll take an advanced networking class, you'll take a system design class, and a system administration class. So again, this is, a bunch of hardware. How do you pick the right hardware and marry them together? How do you make those things communicate over a network? And how do I now manage the software side of those things once they're already hooked together and networked? So that's what these 3 things are. So this is basically, how do I figure out how to do Mark Newhouse's job? How do I pick the right stuff that I'm going to spend a lot of money on? How do I connect it all together through networks? And then how do I administer it? Okay. So that's the master's program. Now, I'll put this out there. Yes, I would love for you to take our master's program. That means, more butts and seats and, more money for Concordia and yada, 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 yada. But if I'm your dad, I tell you, go where God takes you, but do a master's program in computer science. It's going to by far more than pay for itself over and over and over again. Your upwards earning potential is going to be so much higher, and it opens a lot more doors for you once you get into industry and you decide, am I going to be the code monkey where I just move up to senior software engineer making the big bucks there, or am I going to be the manager person who maybe works my way up through like software engineer 2, and then I go more towards the administrative management side, and I'm running teams of software engineers where I spend less of my time programming and more of my time managing programmers. The master's degree gets you onto that level where you would be compatible with that job from a degree perspective. Many people are overlooked for that just because they only have a bachelor's degree, even if they would be qualified for the job. So if you don't do it at Concordia, do a master's in computer science or related somewhere. Some people on the business thing, they say, oh, I really want to be on the business side, so they look at MBA. Nothing wrong with an MBA. I don't want to discount it, but MBAs are a dime a dozen. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of people, and we don't have enough time for me to say all the lots, have MBAs. It's not that it's a bad degree. It's not that it's not valuable. It's not that people make great livings with MBAs, but significantly fewer people have masters in computer science. So it's a much rarer commodity. It will look better on paper, in my opinion. And I have quite a bit of industry experience, so hopefully that opinion means something. But do a master's somewhere. Again, I'd love for you to come here. I'd love for you to get an early start and spend less money in total on the master's and get it more quickly, but get it somewhere. Go somewhere and get a master's. Some of you will find jobs that'll pay for it. So most of you know Blaine Andrada. He's working at Acuity. If you've looked in our master's program, we have a whole lot of Acuity people who come back and do a master's because Acuity pays for it. So you do some of the classes as an undergrad, then you go and work and they pay for your bill. But even if they don't, take out loans, pay for it. It'll more than pay for itself very quickly. Okay. Any other questions real quick?
Yeah, I got a question. So let's say, because I've talked to a couple people, and myself included, like you think right now you want to do software engineering, programming, but let's say down the line you've done it for a little bit, or you just don't do it at all, and you feel like, like, do you feel like, I mean, especially for Concordia graduates, that we would have opportunities besides software engineers and programmers to find job opportunities with our degree, like things besides those specific jobs?
The answer is yes, and I think there's going to be more and more jobs, and that's why I'm kind of highlighting this AI and cybersecurity thing. So many jobs moving forward are going to start moving into AI and robotics. If we just kind of close our eyes and imagine what the world looks like in a decade, we're going to see a lot more robots walking around, and we're going to hear a lot more about artificial intelligence. So this is going to be a major thing, and because our tools, so kind of sitting in this package here is also this data science, data analytics stuff, because it's very related to machine learning. Those things exist in that box there, the AI and robotics. And that's going to become part of the work that's going to get done out in industry. And because the tools that we use to do that are constantly evolving, they require less code and more using those software tools to solve problems. So for instance, if you were to go out and start becoming a data scientist or a machine learning person, you wouldn't be writing the back propagation algorithm that you might learn in an AI class by hand. You would use Amazon's ML library or TensorFlow from Google, and which has all that jazz built into it, and you would become an expert at using those tools. So your background in computer science, working with complexy things and working with software and knowing how to navigate technology allows you to jump onto those new things as they come out, and that becomes your job. So you're not sitting there writing custom software day in, day out. Instead, you're writing solutions to problems using somebody else's tools, which might require some scripting, but a majority of what you're doing is kind of putting the right software tools together to solve some problem. Same thing's true with cybersecurity. I'm going to talk about two classes here that are offered in the fall that I'm going to push pretty hard. The 428 class and the 419 class. So next fall, we offer the first time 419, which is machine learning and robotics. So I strongly encourage you to take that class, as well as penetration testing. You do not need to have the first security class in order to take the second. This isn't the second security class, it's just a different security class. The penetration testing class is effectively a class on hacking. You maybe have heard of it called a white hat hacker or ethical hacking. Basically, the way you can protect computing systems against hackers is by understanding how hackers think and knowing the tools that they use to try to break into or penetrate systems. So in that class, you are taught to be a hacker, which hopefully sounds kind of neat. So I encourage you to look at that 428 class. I encourage you to look at the 419 class. Whether you do those concentrations or not, they will count as the CS elective from the tech core or one of your free electives. You're not hurting yourself, and those are just going to be great skills to have. But to follow up on that, the question, Clancy, 100% your degree from Concordia does, even your book doesn't mean I'm going to go be a programmer day in, day out for the rest of my life. It probably is going to lend itself to that being your first job. But that's true of any computer science program. We produce computer programmers who use computer programming as a tool in different industries. So Colin, for instance, he's writing software right now at his internship in the mortgage industry. Noah is about to start working with SkyGen, and V, if you know V, she also works at SkyGen. They're working with stuff in the insurance industry. Acuity, also the insurance industry. There's some folks that might be working in video games, things like that. So you're in all sorts of different industries, so you're not just writing meaningless code day in, day out. You're applying it to a problem that's something you don't already know. You're just walking in the door with kind of your hammer. I'm a programmer, and then they're going to teach you about the industry that you're going to start banging on with that hammer. But to your point, Clancy, as you get into it, you kind of start off as a programmer, but then from there you start deciding, is this what I want to do the rest of my life? Or do I kind of want to move more towards administrative management where, hey, I like programming, you know, it's something maybe 30% of my time I'm willing to kind of do, but I don't want to do this day in, day out. Maybe I want to manage teams of people who do this because, you know, God made both kinds of people, right? You know, we need the managers to keep the programmers in line, and we need the programmers to fulfill the requests of the managers. You know, so hopefully we have a good balance of people with those two different skill sets. One of those skill sets isn't necessarily more important than the other. But your degree will allow you to go in, because I think you've heard me say it before, that 90% of what you learn, you don't learn in the classroom. Think about, you know, your study groups for this class. I mean, I'm teaching X, Y, and Z in class. You see me write the stuff, but how much learning has actually occurred when you're sitting there in your study group for 5 hours, banging on some problem and trying 11 different things and learn something. That's not something I put in your head. I gave you a problem to solve, but you learned something as part of your approach to that problem, and that didn't happen in the classroom. The same thing's going to be true in industry. You know, you're going to learn all these skills in industry. You just walk through the door with enough background, you know, to get started. So they didn't have to teach you how to program. But you're going to learn stuff from that point forward. So don't view a college degree as all the tools you're going to need. It's just kind of your green card to get you in the door so that they're saying your starting point is adequate for us to do this. That makes some sense?
Would you say that employers look more, would you say an employer is more likely to hire someone who is pretty good at programming but has great social and management skills, or someone who is an awesome, you know, 100% great programmer but lacks the social skills and management skills?
It's a loaded question. It's really going to depend on the employer and the kind of job they want you to do. If you're going to be interfacing with customers, they're probably going to take the person who is a decent programmer, maybe not the best programmer they're interviewed, but can speak to a human without scaring them off. But if they need that go-to person, they need the coding genius behind the scenes who, you know, hey, we're going to keep them in a dungeon. We're going to keep them away from customers. We're going to have some marketing person or whatever, or a manager be the liaison between the customer and that person. But man, when we have a hard problem we need to solve, we're going to send it down to the dungeon and have that guy or gal figure it out because they're just gifted at what they do. So, you know, the answer to your question is yes. You know, both people are needed and they both have unique skills that are important. Having, you know, it's somewhat rare, let's say, to have somebody who is a very strong programmer who also has very good people skills. You know, that's kind of like that diamond in the rough, if you can be both. Whereas, you know, it's probably more common for you to be, you know, kind of the weirdo and be a great programmer, or be kind of like, you know, the normal person, quote, you know, in the group. Not necessarily the strongest person, but kind of knows how to talk to the rest of the humans, right? They're doing all the ordering through the drive-through because the weirdos in the back seat don't know how to communicate with other people. They only know how to talk to computers. So both of those skills are highly viable, and it ultimately comes down to know thyself, right? Every single one of you has unique gifts, and some of you are going to tend more towards one side of that than the other. And both of them are valuable. So, you know, as you guys have worked in study groups, you kind of figured out who are the extra strong programmers versus who are maybe the more, you know, social people versus who are the lazy people, right? You know, we have those in the group as well. So, but the point is that the people who aren't as good at programming but are very social and can talk to human beings, it's not that they're less valuable. They're probably your future managers. And the people that are just gifted at programming, they're probably your future geniuses working in the dungeon. Both of those people are part of the equation that makes the world turn. So it's just going to depend on the job you're applying for, Chris, because I mean, employers are looking for different things. And then you also have a big thing in employers look for these days is culture. So one of the biggest things Acuity looks for, and I use them a lot because I have a very close relationship with them, and a lot of our top students end up going to Acuity, but it's a cool place to work. But they are more concerned about culture fit than they are with GPA, or they are with how great your skill set is the day you walk in, because they spend 3 months training you. They assume that you know how to learn when you walk through the door and you're dangerous enough at programming, but they're going to train you on their system. So you kind of go there, and your first 3 months is like you're still in college. They're doing classes. They're not having you do productivity stuff for them yet. But they are very concerned about culture fit. So they want to pick people who are going to fit with the greater Acuity culture, how it feels there. Kind of an example you might see if you walk into an Apple store. You know how an Apple store kind of feels a little culty because all the workers there seem to be similar in kind of a weird way. You kind of wonder where the Kool-Aid is. Apple has a culture associated with it, and when they hire folks, they're hiring folks that match their culture, whether they're the most technically qualified people or not, or they just kind of fit the right thing. Same thing, you walk into a Starbucks or a Collectivo or something like that, that barista culture is a thing. And you have some of these coffee shops that are going to be kind of more, I don't know, a little bit children of the corn, maybe pothead type culture that kind of fits the barista thing. Then on the other side, you have maybe the Starbucks culture, which is a little bit more of like the McDonald's of the coffee industry, where it's maybe a little bit more dress codey and things like that. So you have it takes all kinds in our industry.
Clancy, I've been interviewed for a lot of internships this year, and I have not been asked one technical question on any interview.
Which is also a problem. That should not be the case.
But it's almost all been about the culture and making sure that I fit, because they figure that in an internship I can probably learn their systems and how they want to do things.
Mm-hmm.
So. For sure. Thank you for sharing.
So let me just quickly bring up our schedule for the fall. So again, the cosmogony class is offered in the fall. And I mean, I know that some of you have aversions to Dr. LeClaire in class, or, don't mind him, whatever it is. I'm telling you, this is a cool class. I've known Gary for a lot of years. He's a good guy. He's a good teacher. He's a little different than me. Our classes have a little bit different feel to them, but I'm telling you, this is his sweet spot. Cosmogony is something he's very, very, very passionate about, and he's good at it, and it's a really, really cool class. It just shouldn't be required for computer science, so I don't want to give off this impression that class is a bad class. I'm solving the problem of what do you need as students to go out and do well in industry. And cosmogony is not that. But I can say, what do you need as Christians to go out and do well in the world, being able to defend the faith, but also, operate as a scientist and have, good conversations with other people, rather than point down at non-Christians and say, well, you're just stupid and my God's better than your God, and all this stuff, really coming from a position that you can't defend. You don't have the tools to defend it. So the cosmogony class is just a really, really, really cool class. I encourage you to take it, but I'm not requiring you to take it. And even if you stick with your current catalog, I will let you swap it for something else. But these are the two classes I want to highlight. And I saw, Ben, I'll get to you in a second. The two classes I want to highlight here are the 428. This is the penetration testing class. Dr. Wall teaches this. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 11:05, whatever. So this is the white hat hacker class. Learn what the hackers do, what tools they use to try to penetrate systems. I think that's going to be a cool class. It'll be great for an elective, even if you don't do the cybersecurity concentration, I think that's a skill that would be beneficial in any resume. Then the other class is 419, and I think 300 greatly prepares you for that class. This is the machine learning and robotics class, where the focus is, I mean, it's going to be an AI class where you're going to be talking about artificial intelligence. But this is more applied artificial intelligence, where we're thinking about how do we write software that makes decision making. What machine learning is about creating a computer program that acts like a human, that can solve problems. I think I've shared with you before my first experience with machine learning with the multiplication table, where I implemented the back propagation algorithm in some advanced algorithms class or whatever, and trained it on the 1 through 5's multiplication table, and then tested it on the 6 through 10's table, and I got like 97% of it right on data he'd never seen before. So this computer software I wrote, I taught it. It was like a child, and it was amazing, and it was fascinating to me. Well, that's what that class is going to be about, is the tools that exist for writing that stuff. But as I mentioned earlier, on one of Clancy's questions, it's less and less common that you're going to sit down and write those things by hand. Like today, if you want to train a neural network to do the 1 through 5's table, then you can test it on the 6 through 10's multiplication table. You don't have to write the neural network. There's already tools out there that allow you to create instances of neural networks with some number of input nodes and some number of hidden layers and things like that. They already exist. You don't have to do that part. The part that you do now is deciding, how am I going to represent my inputs? Do my 2 numbers come in as bits, 0s and 1s? Do they come in as decimal numbers? How do I separate that input? How do I read my output? And then it's going to be a matter of tweaking how many hidden layers and how many nodes I have in the hidden layers to get me the most accurate output. So it's a lot more about kind of tweaking a system that already exists rather than writing the system first and then using the system. So I think that machine learning class could be very cool as well. If you got room in your schedule, I'd take both of them, to be honest. But I want to highlight 428 and 419. They're coming from a little bit different direction. If you're only going to do 2 concentrations, the software engineering and if software engineering is one of them, the one that's most compatible is artificial intelligence and robotics. So maybe you lean towards 419. But if you can take both, take both. All right, Ben.
Yeah, so I was confused. So speaking of CS428, I guess this is a good transition. I was confused that it was similar to the, because you had put, because you had originally put it as 426 in your Slack message, so I got kind of confused. But would you still say penetration testing is still valuable?
Oh, more than valuable. In fact, if I look at it, yeah, I mean, if I'm picking between 426, 428 is not the sequel to 426.
Okay.
They're different classes. So 426 is more about cryptography and hashing algorithms, public-private key encryption, that kind of stuff, which is interesting, but that's not fun. It's important. And again, this is coming from like my video game brain, right? So it's not that it's not interesting, but hacking sounds fun. I've got this computer in front of me. I want to break into that computer. What do the hackers use? What tools do they use to do that? That's what 428 is. So it's complementary to 426, but it doesn't build on top of 426. It has to do with you kind of being in a knife fight with a computer, and how do I get past its firewalls and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's useful to learn how to break a computer so you know how to fix it, right?
Well, more than useful. I think it's a requirement. How do you protect against, if you're going to be a cybersecurity professional, how do you protect your systems if you don't know how the hackers are trying to get into your systems?
Yeah.
Right? You have to know that side, in order to provide the security. So I think that's going to be a really cool class. So I'm pretty excited about both of those classes in the fall. Professor Locklear is teaching 419. I know he's going to work hard on that over the summer. It's the first time we're offering that. And Dr. Wall, I think, is pretty giddy about this 428 class. He's looking at 30 different books. Like I keep ordering books for him to look at. So I have a feeling the class is going to be pretty fun.
Oh my
I've been
fun.
in 6 this semester, and I gotta say it's pretty much what you said, Lippman. It's not like down and with penetration testing, but I'd say it is very complementary, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like the CSC 150 or 175 to what's going to come in penetration testing. So it's a useful class to take for that because you'll get kind of an insight as to what you're going to be doing and smaller steps to it. But yeah, I don't think it's necessary either.
Oh, it's definitely 426 is definitely not a prerequisite for 428. In fact, we have some students who are in 200 right now who are going to take 428 in the fall.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not a programming-centric course. It's a course that says, hey, give me a toolbox of tools, and I'm going to install, and I'm going to learn how to attack stuff. It's like a first-person shooter video game type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm pushing those classes pretty hard. I know both of those profs are pretty open to online if you have a scheduling conflict. I think it's always better online if we end up having online classes. But, I think both of those profs are pretty compatible with if you do have a scheduling conflict, they'll figure out a way to work it out. But I'm pretty excited about those classes. And let's see then. You might also, now that you have 300, we have 415 being offered in the fall. So this is the first artificial intelligence class. So 415 and 419, similar to 426 and 428. They are related, but 415 is not a prerequisite for 419. 415 is a prerequisite for 417, which is offered in the spring. This is AI 2, wherever it is. Here it is. That's the sequel to 415. 419 sits on its own. And then here. So if you wanted to just have, I think I put this up, this picture. So I don't know if I put this part out there, but this is the color coding. So you see who's teaching the stuff. These are the classes that will traditionally be offered in the fall. These are the classes that are traditionally offered in the spring. This doesn't impact you, but you'll notice that there's a couple of classes that are actually flip-flop for the next 2 semesters because we have moving forward, you'll start taking CSC 200 and 175 in the fall, then 250 in the spring, and then 300 the following fall. So you actually start taking your programming classes a semester earlier because we no longer require 150. But we have a group of 200 students, a large group of 200 students right now, 42 students who have 200 right now. So they need 250 in the fall, and they need 300 in the spring. So we flip-flopped those for that semester just for this coming year. So we're accommodating them. But this is what you can plan on for your next several years as you're thinking about your schedules as when classes are available. I plan on sticking, unless something just sticks out as a sore thumb as being a bad fit. I plan on the fall of this year, next year, and the fall of the year after that, and the fall of the year after that, having these classes, and the spring having these classes. So that can kind of let you plan ahead a little bit about what will be coming, what will be available in future semesters, as you're trying to figure out, well, how much can I fit next fall and spring versus how much will I fit the following fall and spring. All right. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
So in the major, I guess the old major, the major we're kind of in right now, there were like, I guess 9 or 12 required like CS electives.
Mm-hmm.
Do those kind of go out the window in place of the concentration, I guess? And then
yeah, probably something with that. If you do stick to the old schedule, we would then replace your electives with classes that are in our current thing. So if you were to ask me, like, Class X is no longer available. What could I take in its place? I would probably see any 300 level or above computer science class that isn't otherwise required. So we'll very conveniently swap out classes for electives, since obviously your things are switching on you midstream. So decisions will always be made to either be equal or beneficial to you. You won't have a situation where you're like forced to stay an extra semester or something because we're not giving you some class. So we'll always make accommodations to make it fit. But I think that's an accurate statement, is we've effectively created concentrations that allow us to flag kind of where your expertise is on a transcript, as opposed to just having these blanket electives that aren't really brought, attention isn't brought to them on a transcript for when you are applying for jobs. All right, anything else?
Would you recommend for us to change into the new major or keep the old major?
I would 100% recommend all of you switch into the new major, unless you go through what we've talked about today and you decide that you're kind of too far down the rabbit hole in the other one, which I doubt many of you are. But, obviously if I'm talking to my, second semester juniors right now, they might be in a situation where they won't be able to graduate on time. So for you, that's why I spent so much time today talking about this. I think for this group, I would highly, highly, highly encourage you to switch to the new major, unless you go through and determine that it will hold you back a semester or something like that. I wouldn't delay graduation for the new major, because you can always on your resume claim that you effectively did a concentration in AI if you take a bunch of the new AI classes, even if that's not officially on your transcript. So I think you can still get the benefit of it. So don't delay graduation because of it. But if you can avoid a couple of math classes, not that math is bad, and take a few extra computer science classes, I would encourage you to do that. I think it'll give you it'll prepare you more for industry, and I think the timing is still compatible with this particular group. If you were one semester farther in, then maybe things start getting a little sketch, but the computer science or the university's core has not changed. So up to this point, you've only had a handful of computer science classes because you've been mostly taking stuff in your core. So you really haven't gone off the rails too much, except for 150, which actually meets the core math requirements. So you just kind of even, let's call it, dumb down your math even more. something like that. Who is it, Ben?
So my question was, if that's the case, then how do we justify that we're going for the new one or changing?
Go work with, most of you have your advisor is Dana. Starting next year, you'll be assigned to one of the CS faculty. So Dana can always answer questions related to kind of the university and the core and things like that. We can answer stuff related to computer science things. So Dana can help you switch. There's paperwork with the registrar that you switch catalog years. But the reality is you don't have to do that like day one or anything. I mean, you basically just need to make sure that you're in the new catalog before you go to apply for graduation.
All right.
That way your classes you've taken are applied to the correct rubric for whether or not you're good to go or not. So it's not something you have to rush out and do. You can just start taking the classes now and figure that out later on, maybe when it's more convenient to, walk down to the registrar and pick up a form or something, where right now it's going to require some emails and stuff.
Right. Okay. Just wondering.
Yep. All right. Anything else?
What classes do we need to take in the fall?
Okay. So right down to brass tacks. Let's see. Fall. What classes do you need to take in the fall? That's loaded. You're coming out of 300, so you finished the programming core is the punchline here. So as being done with the programming core, you can basically take any computer science class at this point, minus like 417 because you haven't had 415. So let's say that you're interested in the AI track. if you're interested in the AI track and you want to take those classes sooner rather than later, you should take 415 in the fall so that you can take 417 in the spring, because 415 is the prerequisite for 417. So that's one class that I would say if you're interested in the AI concentration, take that in the fall, the 415 class. 430 would also be a good class to take in the fall. It's a required database class. Everybody has to take it. You all have to take it as well. Everybody in the new major has to take it, so that hasn't changed. The sooner you take that, I'd say the better, but you could wait. That'll be offered the following fall as well. But you're certainly qualified to take that. 428, I think, like I said, is a really cool class, and I would recommend you take it. 420 is similar to 430. Everybody has to take 420. You can take it this fall. You can take it next fall. If I were choosing between 420 and 430, and I'm going to try to be as unbiased as possible, because frankly, I'm not a fan of 420. User experience, human-computer interaction. I'm always teasing the other guys. That's I don't know. It's not computer sciencey enough for me. But again, I'm not a design-minded person at all. So frankly, if we didn't have good human-computer interaction stuff, our software would all suck, and we wouldn't have, nobody would want to use it. So it is important. I just don't value it. So I think if I were having to pick between 430 and 420 as to which one will more directly benefit me in other computer science classes, I would pick 430. I think having database knowledge sooner rather than later will help you in other computer science classes. Where I think having 420, even your senior year is okay. I don't know how much that's going to help you with success in other computer science classes, even though you do have to take it. Let's see. If you like me as a teacher, 470 is also a good class. This is very programming centric. This is language theory. So this class is the class where we write a programming language. You can take it this coming fall. You can take it the following fall. I think it's a fun class. We use a language in there called Scheme. So it's a functional programming language. But I think that would be a cool class to take if you are a glutton for punishment for another Lippmann class. It's my favorite class, 470. So let's see, anything else? I think that covers. Yeah, so for this group, I'm going to push you into 428, 419. I just think they're exciting classes. 430 pushes you down the track of classes you have to take anyways. So does 420. But you could take 420 whenever, I'd say. 430, I think, is a better class to take. If you only could pick one of them, I'd take 430. 415, I would go ahead and take it if you're planning on doing the AI track. That way you can take the 417 class in the spring. And then again, if you are interested in computer animation, you could take animation 1 here in the fall. Animation 2 is offered in the spring, and then animation 3 is offered again in the fall. So you can knock out the animation classes if that's of interest to you. Does that answer that question? In a very verbose, I'm not sure I told you exactly what you have to take, but I gave you rationale for all sorts of stuff.
Yes.
All right, I think I saw Sarah's hand was up.
Yeah, I was just wondering, so it sounds like with the human-computer interaction, that is less coding heavy, because I'm just trying to think ahead, like time-wise, how much homework I will need to do each day.
Yeah. 420 will definitely be less coding here. 420 is not about making interfaces look pretty. It's about interfaces working well with humans. Like, when do you use a drop down versus when do you use a checkbox? That kind of stuff. I'm probably, underselling it because, again, like I said, it is like a joke with us and the other faculty. Like when I was writing up, little nuggets of information for our different classes. Gary and Josh were in their offices, and I just blurted out from my office something like, when you say knit 1, purl 2, how do you spell purl? And they started taking that seriously. And I said, yeah, I'm just trying to put something in there for the 420 class. They got a kick out of that. But yeah, I would say that, I don't want to flag any of these classes as being easy. But if you're kind of asking the question of, if you're associating programming as being more time consuming outside the class, 420 would have less programming outside of class. So would 430. 430 and 420 neither of them are programming centric classes, and neither is 415. AI is not a programming centric class either. You will have programming in all of those classes, but at a significantly reduced rate. Most of those classes are about human-computer interaction, database, or AI. 419 should be a little more programming-centric, but like I mentioned earlier, you're mostly going to be using tools that already exist rather than writing algorithms. So it would be more a matter of kind of learning how to use that tool. So I would still argue, it's less programming-centric, even though you're going to be using somebody else's programs to do it. 470 will definitely be programming-centric. What's interesting about it, though, is the amount of code you write is very small because it's heavy recursion. I'd strongly encourage you to do the 470 class while recursion and programming is still fairly fresh in your mind. So with that in mind, I might encourage you to get 470 out of the way before you like fall out of programming practice or something. But this will certainly be more time consuming than the other classes, but more because you're wrapping your mind around recursion. So as the semester goes on, it'll become less time consuming because you'll get more comfortable with it. Because the number of lines of code you write is actually not a huge number of lines. Like your assignment might take 7 lines of code. It's just a very certain 7 lines of code. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, just a quick one. So to clarify, did you say that 420 is an essential class, but you don't recommend taking it? Like, you don't have to take it right away. It's just something you can push off.
Correct. Yeah, it is required. You have to take it in your major. You have to take it in the new major. So it is an essential class, I think, for industry. It's not a class that I think will greatly benefit you in your other computer science classes. So if you were to push off 420 to take it later, I don't think you're putting yourself at a disadvantage when you get into some other computer science class that's going to reference the 420 stuff. Whereas 430, other computer science classes will reference database stuff. So if you could only pick between those two, so it is essential for industry, but not essential for your other computer science courses. 430 is essential for industry and as well as could be essential for other computer science classes. But either one of them could be delayed. Either one of them could, could wait. So I realize you can only take so many classes, to Sarah's point. Like, well, it'd be great if I just took everything, but then I'd have my whole degree in a semester, and my sanity is out the window.
So to replace CSC 420 with 428 penetration testing, that wouldn't be a bad idea?
In my opinion, no, that would be a good idea.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I only have 1 extra credit, so I was looking to see if I could get that in my schedule. So
yeah, that would be my opinion. I don't want to undersell 420, and I don't want to starve out that class. But if I were you and I was taking those two, one of those two, I would take 428.
I have a question, but it's probably won't help anybody else, so I don't want to waste everybody's time with it right now.
All right, well, so anybody, I can hang out for a little bit longer, but I know class is actually over, so we didn't accomplish anything today. So I'll just push the homework assignment from last time back another day. So if you want some more time to bang on it, you can. We will do programming on Thursday, though.
What was the homework assignment for today?
It was the same homework assignment from last week. I just gave you more time to work on it.
Oh, okay.
Because if you remember, we spent last week talking about you had the homework assignment on Tuesday through Thursday, and I said I wouldn't give you work over the weekend. And then on Thursday, we talked about how I would have gone about it, thinking about the idea of data structures and how certain things look like data structures, and data structures don't have to have a fancy name in order for it to actually still be a data structure. When do I use arrays versus when do I use linked lists, and that kind of jazz. So I just gave you more time to basically go back and, you know, rehash your assignment from Tuesday that was due on Thursday, to update it based on what we discussed on Thursday. So if you need more time, I'll just push that off till Thursday. But we'll do some more programming stuff on Thursday, but I'll still commit to not giving you more homework over the weekend. Because like I said, I realize that people are having to spend their weekends doing things they didn't used to have to do during the weekend. So we're all in this together. We'll figure it out. So you get a little reprieve on homework. So I encourage you to practice this stuff on your own time right now, even though you're not being forced to do it for an assignment. All right. Any other questions?
I had a question about taking the graduate classes during senior year.
Yep.
So we could take up to 4 total or 4 per semester?
4 total.
Okay.
Officially, I am recorded here, so we'll just throw it out there. So I get my hand slapped. The official university thing is you can definitely take 1 grad class, and because our classes are 8-week classes, I translate that into meaning you can take 1 16-week class, which means 2 of our grad classes. That's official. It's been very common for you to get a second grad class. So I feel reasonably ethical in telling you that you can take 4 of our 8-week grad classes as an undergrad without raising any eyebrows. Now, I'll say that in the past, students have taken more than that, and it hasn't been noticed. So I don't want to officially sell that as it, but if you do have open credits, I would rather entertain you taking some more grad classes with those open credits than you having to pay for the credits a second time. I probably feel more comfortable talking about that on record right now, given the state of things. And, you know, we want to be student-centric as much as possible. But, you know, we can work it out if you have room in there. But always keep in mind that the grad courses do not count as undergrad credits. So you don't get to double dip. You can't use them as part of your total 120 credits to graduate. They only count towards the graduate program.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
Thanks again.
Yep. Well, sorry I blew the class on non-programming stuff, but I wanted everybody to have their ducks in a row since I guess signing up for classes has already started. So CS classes don't typically fill up. So if you do have any issues, let me know getting into a class, because now we have increased capacity for our rooms. So sometimes some of our classes still have old maximum capacities on them of, like, 20 people or 15 people or something like that, where we can fit 32 people now in 120, and we can fit 42 people in 118. Technically, we start seating people on the back counter by the windows. We could probably fit 50 or 55 in there. So, okay. So we'll call it there. I'll hang out, Noah, if you want to ask your question. If anybody else wants to ask any other questions, I'll keep the recording going, but if you don't want your question on...
No. Mine's just about senior STEM.
Okay. Yeah, I'll keep the recording going, but if you happen to have a question, if somebody else has a question that you don't want it on a recording, I can pause it. That way, if anybody has to leave and they want to still catch up on what was discussed at the end, they can get it.
So CSC300 is capstone, right?
Correct.
So when I was registering for classes, it said that it was Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It looks like on here it's only on Friday.
Let's see where. Oh yeah. So basically, that class doesn't meet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that class is because every person in the class does an individual project.
Yeah.
So the first couple weeks we do meet. because you're like working on your requirements document and the idea that you're trying to get your idea hammered down, and specifications documents, things that you've learned how to do in 370, the software engineering class. But then after that, the rest of the semester, you're working on your project, and your project isn't the same as the person sitting next to you's project. So meeting in class is a meaningless thing because everybody's working on different projects. So what's pretty common is some students who want to meet regularly, we just set up a weekly meeting or a bi-weekly meeting or whatever, and we meet. Other students just set up meetings as needed. So it's whatever makes you comfortable. If you need to have a weekly meeting to keep you on task, I'm happy to meet with you on a regular basis. Otherwise, the class doesn't necessarily meet.
Okay. And then, so then it goes all the way through till noon on Fridays? Or is that just like the first couple weeks that it would do that?
Not even that. I mean, frankly, it doesn't really meet the first couple weeks. If that didn't fit your schedule, you had your internship or something like that, you certainly would not have to come to class. We can just meet offline.
Okay. That's what my question was. So, okay. Gracias.
Yep. Anything else from anybody?
For the internship class, do we basically just like prove we're at an internship, or do we like actually do work?
Yeah, no, you just prove it. So basically you would come to me before you did your internship and say, hey, this is my internship, with this count, and as long as it's loosely related to computer science, the answer will be yes. And then at the end, you just write like a little one-page summary of kind of what you did and how it relates to your major, and you have your supervisor from your internship sign it, and that's it. That closes the loop. There's no assignments or anything.
Cool.
Anything else?
I think I have another question. So I'm not remembering the numbers right off, but there's the database class, and then there's like the advanced database and web development.
Yeah,
I'm guessing
460.
Okay, and I'm guessing the one is a prereq to the other.
Yeah, I think that's a true statement. Yes.
Okay.
You need 430 before you take 460. And 460, I believe, is in the spring. Yeah. So that's actually a good point. If you were going to knock the database class out, since it is required for everybody, and so is 460, you could, this is more towards Josh's question, you could view 430 as being a pretty important class to take for you guys in the fall, not just because it's used in other classes, the idea of databases, but also it sets you up to get 460 out of the way in the spring. I don't want to choke out the 428 or the 419 class, but they'll be offered the following fall and the following spring, those two classes, the following fall as well. So if you're just kind of thinking about which classes do I absolutely need to graduate, 430 and 460 are both required in the new major. 430 is required in the old major. So you might take 430 as a definite in the fall, and then 460 in the spring. All right, anything else?
Is there any way that you could send in Slack the requirements for the new major?
I think I put a link up.
Did? Okay, perfect.
I think I have the this document.
All right, that's good then.
I'll confirm that I put it up there in all the channels, but I'm almost positive I did.
Okay.
Like I put it up in general, I put it up in 300, I put it up in 200, I put it, I just pasted it everywhere. Which means you just told me you don't check Slack.
No, I check Slack. I more am into the study group chat though than probably the 300.
I see. I'll double check in 300. See if I put it in there. Yeah, it's in there. It links you back to, actually I link you to the 200 channel, but it's in the 300 channel that links you to the 200 channel where I have the undergrad flyer and the grad flyer.
All right, thank you.
All right, anything else? All right, well, I will see everybody on Thursday.